This is part 2 of the series where I walk you through different aspects in making a decision between choosing litigation versus corporate law. I hope you guys had the chance to check out part 1 of the series, and if you haven't, I suggest that you start there. And for those of you who have watched part 1 of the series, I hope you got the time to reflect on some of these questions and you have those answers penned down. So in the last video, I walked you through what the monetary potential looks like for each of these parts, as well as where you add value in the ecosystem for each of these parts. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through the skills that are relevant for each of these parts and what the day-to-day looks like. And just like in the last video, I'm going to have a set of questions for each section that I walk you through for you to introspect and answer for yourself. Let's first break down the skills that are relevant for each of these parts. At its foundation, the core skills that are required for both litigation and corporate are the same, in that they include communication, analytical skills, research skills, client management. However, how these skills are used in different ways for both the career paths are different. Litigators might use communication and becomes relevant in different ways as opposed to how corporate lawyers use it. So in this section, I'm only going to be talking about the differences in both of these skills. If you're interested in watching a full episode on how communication as a whole is relevant for lawyers and why you should be building upon it, we've spoken about it at length in another episode, so I suggest that you watch that. So first, coming to communication and client management. For litigators, these skills are two-pronged in the sense that you need one set of communication skills to hold attention of the judge in the court to be able to deliver your point effectively. But there is also another set of communication skills that you would have to develop because you're talking to people from different walks of lives. Like, so you have the judge, you have the opposing counsel, your clients can be from varied backgrounds and with comfort in different languages and also a different level of awareness about the process itself. And then you have your court complex where you're interacting with clerks, where you're interacting with registrars. So here you should develop the ability to read a room and adapt a communication style that is more suitable for the circumstance that you're in. On the other hand, for corporate lawyers, you're largely dealing with a sophisticated set of people. These are your clients who are able to afford a lawyer and they have a baseline understanding of the process. They have a baseline understanding of what they want and what you are speaking. Or you're dealing with other lawyers, you're dealing with other people in the ecosystem like investors, product managers, or bankers. So all of these people are sophisticated in a way that they know a part of the process. They are more likely to have done something that you're working on before. So they have that baseline understanding of what's happening. So the level of communication that you need there is probably that you need to be able to translate what you're saying in more layman terms, but they come with a level of sophistication which you won't find necessarily in litigation. In fact, the most that I've had to adjust my communication style working in corporate law has been when I'm talking with lawyers or clients that are not Indian. So there's that cultural element which is different. So you need to adapt to that style, but that's about it. Otherwise, you will see that you will be dealing with fairly sophisticated people in the ecosystem. Also for litigators, there's this added facet of developing the ability to think on your feet because you're in a courtroom, you're in the heat of the moment, and there's always room for surprises where, the judge can ask you something that you're not ready for, the opposing counsel can bring up something that you're not ready for. So you should develop the ability to think fast on your feet, and which also means that you need to know your subject matter well enough to be able to think fast enough for on your feet. As opposed to this, when it comes to corporate law, most of it is you have the time to prepare and there's not many surprises that you walk into. And even if you do, like for example, you're in a negotiation and you have an opposing counsel that is bringing up a point that you have really not prepared for, there's always scope to say that, I want to park this matter, let's revisit later, I need to consult my client or I need to consult my senior. But this scope is seldom there in litigation. So there's a difference to that effect. On the other hand, for corporate lawyers, a skill that becomes very key in communication is the ability to negotiate. So you should be able to develop that skill, which is very crucial. You should be able to read the other lawyer on the other side. You should be able to read your client. You should be able to know your subject matter as well as technical aspects of the subject matter very well, so that you know what you can leverage, what is important for the deal, how to get parties to the same page. So negotiation becomes a very important skill, which I don't believe is there at the same stake for litigators. So before I set out the questions for this section, I want to point out that all these skills that I'm speaking about is learnable, right? So even if it is not something that is your strength right now, but if you're willing to come out of your comfort zone and learn it because that's something that interests you, it is attainable. So when you're answering these questions, an added facet that you need to consider is what is it that I'm not there right now, but I would like to be there and willing to get there, versus, what am I comfortable with and what are my strengths? So the questions that you need to ask yourself here is, are you someone who's good with dealing with people from all walks of life? And if not, is this something that you're willing to develop? The second question for this section is, are you someone who's interested in learning subjects that are outside of the law in depth? Like, for example, if you're a corporate lawyer and say you're a product counsel, you should be able to learn the industry that you're in, including the commercial aspects, including the technical aspects very well. Is that something that interests you? The third question is, does the idea of learning how to negotiate interest you? Is that a skill that you think that you will enjoy picking up? And the last question for this section is, are you someone that has the ability to think on their feet, or do you prefer structure where you want to prepare and then go for any sort of communication? And one way to answer these questions, if you don't know where you are at yet, is to take this back and observe what your seniors are doing in the next internship and see if you enjoy, like, observe for these aspects to answer these questions and see if that resonates with you. So the next aspect in the skills bracket that you need to consider is, what are the subjects that interest you? You're at law school and you have subjects, you will be exposed to subjects that is relevant for both litigation and corporate law. And I've said this before, right? So don't wait till your fourth year and fifth year to see if you're interested in subjects that are going to come up in those semesters. You can't wait for that long to see where your interests lie. So pick this up in your earlier years, in your between your first year to third year, and see what are the subjects that interest you. So if, for instance, if you're generally inclined and you enjoy constitutional law or procedural law, criminal law, then the only option that you have is litigation. So that answer would be clear enough for you if those subjects really excite you to the extent that you want to pursue a career in that. But on the other hand, if subjects like investment laws, IP, trade law, contract law, these seem more interesting to you, then yes, you could be well suited for corporate law. But take this with the caveat that these subjects also become relevant in litigation if you have litigators that are specializing in these matters. So if you see yourself having interest in some of these commercial laws, but you also like procedural laws, you also like understanding how the court system works, then it's possible that the path for you is litigation with a focus on these commercial matters. Okay, so now coming to what the day-to-day looks like between both these career paths. Some of you could already have a sense of the insight that you need when you're interning. Both of them have starkly different day-to-days, right? What a litigation lawyer does on a daily basis is very different from what a corporate lawyer does. Both of them can be hectic in their own ways. So I'm not going to cover similarities like, you should expect long working hours in both these fields. You should expect that it's going to be time sensitive in both these fields. So I'm not covering that because they are common features for both the paths. But coming to the differences, for corporate law, you will see, of course, the lawyers are spending a huge chunk of their day sitting in office. They're sitting in front of a desk. So it's a fairly comfortable office environment. There is a structure on what time you report, although that there is no structure on what time you exit usually. So that is the environment that you're going to be working at. You're going to be sitting at a desk, you're going to be taking calls, you're going to be taking meetings in the office. There's very seldom any chance for you to kind of travel and get out of your office. Even the business meetings that are taken is usually, taken by partners or principal associates in a law firm. So this is what your day-to-day will look like if you're a corporate lawyer. But on the other hand, if you are in litigation, you're up and about on your feet for a huge chunk of the day. You're traveling between different court complexes. You're coming back to office. Sometimes I've also seen lawyers go to senior counsels for a briefing at different locations. So because that there is so much movement on a day-to-day basis, when it comes to litigation, just the day-to-day can sometimes get physically taxing. And then you come back to office and then you have, that set of work to prepare for the listings the next day. And there is no clear structure in the sense that each day is dependent on what matters are listed. So which court complex you visit is dependent on the matters that you're listed. at least in Bangalore, right, all these courts are situated in different complexes. So there's a lot of movement in those terms. So of course, the question over here that you need to ask yourself is, what kind of a person are you? Like, do you think that the idea of sitting in front of a desk for 8 to 10 hours every day is something that you can do? Do you like the comfort of, sitting in an AC space, knowing where you're going every day, and you have that structure in terms of what your reporting time is, and the previous day. In fact, like a few days ahead, like what are the matters you're going to be likely to be working on that particular day. Or are you someone who likes that energy of moving between different places? It's a highly energy packed day for you as litigators. So what is it that interests you? Where does your personality resonate in terms of day to day? The other aspect of what the day-to-day looks like, of course, is the kind of people you'll be interacting with. I touched upon this in the previous section when it comes to communication. So the same insight is going to be relevant here. You'll be interacting with a very different set of people if you're in litigation versus corporate law. So do consider that when making your decision. To conclude this series, I want to spend a minute on how you look at the trade-offs between both the paths, because what is likely to happen is that you will not have positive answers in favor of one field for all the questions. Neither will you have negative answers against a field for all the questions, right? And what is likely to happen is that you will have some answers that are in favor of litigation and some answers that are in favor of corporate law. So when this happens, I want you to take a step back and think for a moment where any of your answers are in the negative. If it's because that your skill set is not there right now and it's not within your comfort zone, and I want you to think that whether you want your next 30 to 40 years be dictated by something because you're not willing to get out of your comfort zone now. That's a good way to think about what are my answers that are in the negative because I don't have that skills today, versus what are my answers that are negative because that does not genuinely interest me, right? So think of it with that framework. And an additional thing that I would suggest is that you give more weightage to which are the subjects that you like, because that's not likely to change, right? You can't train or untrain yourself to like something or to prefer something over the other. That's just who you are. So give more weightage to what are the subjects that actually excite you as part of your law school curriculum. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I would love to hear what your answers are to these questions in these series. See you.